All set.
Okay, call the meeting to order at 6:35. First item is the adoption of minutes of May 21st, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I'll
Moved
second.
by Tim, seconded by Paul. Are there any additions or corrections?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. It is 3-0. Okay, item 3, correspondence. Joe, you have anything?
No correspondence.
Okay. Item 4, accounts payable for May 2020 that was recently distributed.
That was sent out about 2 weeks ago. It's business as usual. As I always say, it's myself that, we have Boomer that verifies all the information, all the bills that comes in through Cheryl. After Boomer okays it, I review it for my signature, and Josh comes in and signs it, so that we always have 2 signatures on the checks. Nothing out of the ordinary. I'm fine with it, and as Boomer and everything else, everything looks routine.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to turn up my volume. I can't hear as well. This isn't the best laptop. Anybody have any questions on the accounts payable? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yes.
you. I don't have any questions.
Tim, any questions?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, the executive report and the financial statements for May 2020.
Yeah, I'll refer this to Boomer. This is his financials for the board. Everything is looking great in our budgets. I'll let Boomer go into it, into more details. And if you have any questions, we have him on the call. Boomer?
Yeah, you have the material, and I will say that this month seemed a little quieter than normal, but it really wasn't. It was just that some of the mail's coming in later and stuff like that. But the bottom line is we're still showing a good year-to-date gain in most programs, with the exception of the state elderly, which we've discussed in the past because there's some extra stuff going on with all the work down there. And the Section 8 housing choice voucher is still running behind what HUD gives us, but maybe Joe will want to talk a little more about that. The other thing, I think there's an extra report on the COVID, which you guys had asked for, and I know Cheryl is keeping track of that. We were looking at it yesterday, keeping track of it and finding each and every day there's more money that HUD is going to allow us to charge to it. Maybe Joe understands that a little more than I had because he was in, but we're going to make sure we use all the money we have, which is about $140-something thousand total with the two federal programs, and $80,000. I can't remember exactly what the amount is in the voucher program, but we'll be able to use it by year end anyway. And even though we are doing some extra stuff, the extra stuff can be charged to the regular program, and some of the other items that HUD said we could do with like salaries and benefits and stuff like that can be charged to the COVID, because it's allowing us to stay open. And in essence, I think that's one way to put it.
So if I could interject, if I read that printout, it looks like a lot of our maintenance expenses we may be able to charge to this, because it's obviously a major expense we have too, but because we're staying open, that's a legitimate expense that takes costs we otherwise would have off our regular budget, correct?
Exactly, and the way that Cheryl and I discussed it, and she's been right on top of it, is, and I think I mentioned this last month, we need to have it all very well documented in case HUD is specifically going to come in and audit this, not regular auditors, but the HUD people, which I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't see them doing it, but, we're prepared for that. The only thing we haven't done is take all the invoices out and put them separately at this point, but she has a very good record of it by program, including the amount of time that specific maintenance employees worked specifically doing cleanup and COVID activities. So we're ready to go with that.
Good.
And just to probably just add to that, Josh, and which I'll talk later on in regards to like how Boomer talked about with the COVID expenditures updates. This is all included. Right now, I have an RFP that is out in the streets in regards to our computer software. We've already upgraded our front door system, then which I have a camera system along with a buzzer. So while the office is closed right now to the public, in case we're only going to take appointments only per se. I've done some renovations per se inside the building, but I still need to do a lot more renovations. We are updating our phone systems. And we're going to be doing a lot more with the IT for our programs. I'm also looking at possible kiosks, portals for our residents. So now they can do an online recertifications. And this is what a lot of housing authorities in the country are doing. But like what Boomer had mentioned, we're putting the expenses of time served for maintenance. We keep record of in regards to employees that are working from home. We are able to charge all this information. And the biggest thing is Cheryl is so adamant, which, the meetings that Boomer and I have had with her, yes, HUD will be coming out, most likely the Office of Inspector General, to review all these expenses. So this is including all the face masks that I was purchasing. Everything that I purchased that you see right now, later on when we get to the COVID expenses, these are expenses that we've charged along with all the chemicals, mist, sprays, hand sanitizers, you name it. Everything that I had to pay for at this point in time, it's charged there. I was very fortunately to work with Don from the emergency management team here in the town of Manchester, in which he was able to get me some nice supplies for our maintenance guys, Tyvek suits and everything. So those were free of charge that he was able to get for me for our maintenance guys, in which I'll go into a little bit more on that. But yeah, well, like Boomer, so we're gonna have 2 sets of books on all of this. But I'm very proud because I've had meetings with staff via Zoom. Nobody's behind, which is great. But they are working in and out, and we're just trying to keep the safety of our employees here. Timetable when you think that the office will be open up, I have no idea when that would happen. As you see today at midnight, there were a lot of 14-day restrictions out for these 9 states that are high impacted. So when it comes to Connecticut, New York, or New Jersey, there's a whole 14 days. I was on a phone call today, and right now Illinois is on the second wave of surge and everything else. So this COVID is not going anywhere. So, I'm working very diligently with staff to, protect them and see what we need to do to better serve our clientele at this point in time. And I'm also on the Governor's Council working group. So I was on major phone calls with the state today in regards to reopening and with legal services and fair housing individuals. There's a lot of things that are going on, and especially with monies that may be out there because they are looking for landlords not to evict residents or tenants. So there is going to be money that's going to be out there beginning July, right after July 1, in which we can tell some individuals that are behind on their rent that they can go through one of these housing counselors, and hopefully we can get some money back in regards to non-payment issues. housing courts, as Attorney Rubin would know, they are shut down until August 1. We do have 3 executions that should have been utilized right now, but because of the housing courts being closed, we could not use those executions. So we have these individuals. I know Mr. Becker is gonna shake his head that is not paying their rent because they know they can't be evicted right now, and it's just gonna cost us more money. My hands are tied in regards to this. I've been on the phone with Mike Rona, but we have to be very careful when we speak to these individuals. If we start saying word evictions, then they can throw a lawsuit against us. So it's crazy, and our hands are tied. In which hopefully some of these individuals that are now being behind, in which they shouldn't be behind because they are receiving Social Security checks in which they were never, touched. So their income has never changed. But because of listening and hearing other people saying, "Oh, as long as you pay your rent by August, you're not going to get evicted." But with Mary Ann and Steve and Martha, I'm staying on top of them to reach out to the individuals to find out why they're not making those payments. So. We're doing our due diligently in regards to rent receipts.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating because the vast majority of our tenants would be whole financially because they're getting some type of public assistance, and also they've gotten their
$100.
other COVID funding as well. So they may be coming out ahead, but they are hearing reports that, oh, you can let your rent go by. Now there is a chance the legislature is going to special session sometime in July. There could be something in there to impact state programs. I don't know, or some type of housing assistance generally.
There's roughly about $10 million. I was just on the phone with Mike Santora earlier today with the working group, and they're hoping to have this thing out. He was hoping by July 1, but somewhere around July 1. But same thing, he's hoping if it's not by the 1st of July, hopefully it's that week right after the 4th.
Yeah.
So, since I'm on the working group, I will know half a day before the governor signs it, so we know what's going on, so I can get my resident service coordinator involved to talk to these individuals and get them involved with these housing counselors, so that we can hopefully make sure that they're eligible so that we can get payments and everything else.
I asked a question about the financials. Are we still on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
The only one that looks to be a concern, and I'm sure there's an explanation, is that state elderly, which I assume is Spencer Village.
That is Spencer. Yes.
Is that 7,000? Does that include any roof repair, or is that just a deficit from operations?
That is a deficit from operations because of right now, the agreement that we've had because now which I'll get into a little bit more when we talk about the revitalization, is that right now I have 2 empty units that we're not getting any money for because one of the plans is that they wanted me to keep any empty units and use those as our swing units per se when we have the revitalization up and going. That's also with some of that money because of the state, some of the cleaning products that we have to do. And one is that on that $7,000 loss that you see, I got 2 individuals that owes us roughly a little bit over $6,000. So if we had that money, we wouldn't be in a bad shape per se.
What are these individuals paying market rate, or are they subsidized?
They are paying the $425 per month.
And they got behind $3,000 each?
Yep, and this is the thing that we've been waiting for the courts to get them evicted, and we have the execution.
My math wrong that they've been sitting there for a year and not paying rent?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I mean, this whole COVID thing didn't really hit us till March. What
No.
happened to the other 6 months when they didn't pay?
When we went to the courts, the stipulations, the courts hold off, we go back. You know, the courts, they don't like to evict immediately. They want you to work with the families. They didn't keep up with the agreement. We went back. Now we got the execution. And now since March, they should have been out. You're talking April, May, now you got June, 3 months. You're gonna have July, it's 4 months. So that's another $1,800. And then you're gonna have August, so you're gonna be having another $2,000, because
In August, will you be able to evict?
well, August 1 is when they plan on opening up the housing court. Now you're gonna know that there's gonna be a vast majority of attorneys trying to get in there ASAP to get cases. Now,
But if you already have an execution, can't you just hire a marshal and do it?
well, you have to go through the courts, yeah. So we're hoping that August 1 the courts will be open,
But
unless
hasn't the court already issued an execution?
they've
Or
got
not?
they've issued the execution, but you can't get a constable right now to evict because there's the
Right. But I guess when you get to, is it August 1st? Will the marshals be able to take the execution from you and proceed?
for right now, unless the courts change the dates.
Yeah. Or the special session changes something, which could happen.
So, Commissioner Beck, I could not give you that answer. I'm hoping
Okay,
once it's open, Attorney Rona knows that we need to get these issued, but we can't do anything until the courts are open.
sure there's plenty of families that would love those units
Absolutely.
and would be gladly pay the rent.
You are absolutely correct.
All
Any
right.
other questions on the financials? Boomer, you want to add something?
Josh, can I talk this Boomer?
Yes, you can.
In partial answer to what Tim was saying, there's still 4 months left in the fiscal year for Spencer, and those in the summertime are usually ones that we spend less than we bring in anyway. So that might balance that out a little bit in there. There is some concern about the congregate, which ends next month, and we need to very carefully watch that as far as what COVID expenses come in to make sure that we don't show that loss in that project right now. So far, so good, but we're looking at it very closely for the month of June, which we're halfway through now, and it looks like we're okay. But I was worried about that one as well. But
Does the state offer any reimbursement for COVID supplies?
they did, and they took it away.
Oh,
They said it.
thought
Yeah,
the
they
feds
said-
gave them money specifically for that.
Yeah, well, they evidently they ran out of time to get it in this fiscal year. I think that was the word that they did. They said they gave us like a day and said you have to have this request in tomorrow. So and then they said there wasn't any money left. So I don't know about that, but that much
Okay.
with the new session as well. But thank you.
Anything else on financial statements?
Not from me.
Josh,
Yes, Karen.
Josh, this is Karen. If we're doing audio on this, people need to state their name before they talk.
Okay, I know I'm bad about doing that. I will either have them state their name or I will clearly articulate who's being recognized.
Are we not recording the video as well?
We are, but Karen's trying to do the minutes.
Oh, okay, of course.
Yes,
And if you have people just listening to it, they don't know who's talking.
right. That's a good point. Okay. I will
Could
work on
any member of the public could request the video after the meeting is over, right? Is that correct?
The video I have to post a video within 7 days after our meeting on our website. So right now on our website, if you go on our website, it's got the agenda along with all the documentations that you have because that's per the governor. And it's got our last 2 months of our board meetings are up on the website right now. So we're in compliance with the governor.
Oh, very good.
Okay. Moving on to the vacancy statements. Joe?
In front of you, is this vacancy from January 1 of this year through June 18th. We are leasing units up, as you can see, even during the COVID. So right now we do have 3 federal units that are being worked upon. Hopefully, they will be leased up. It's been working very well, in which staff, Stephen and Martha, are basically interviewing over the telephones. All paperwork is being mailed out to the individuals that accept the units. When they come out to take a look at the units, maintenance will unlock the door and have the residents go out, take a look at the units, and everything else. I know eventually, hopefully within the next month or two, I'll get Mr. Becker out to the property so we can start taking pictures and probably upload our different types of units on our website and everything else, and maybe do like a video cameo of our different units that we have and different types. So I'm excited to see that. I'm sure Mr. Becker's excited because we have
Do you have any units that are furnished that the residents would let us do it, or are we doing vacant ones?
I'd rather do vacant ones. I would hate
Okay.
to do anything that's furnished right now, Mr. Becker, because of
Okay.
COVID. You know, as you know, and I'm sure everybody here would, you know, we need to treat everybody that they may have COVID. You know, and I would hate to see, as you know, thank God, none of our residents as of today has been COVID positive. I would not want to see our employees, and I would hate to see any one of my commissioners with that. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. Maybe once this is all done, then we could do a furnished apartment. But I'd rather be proactive and not reactive, and you know, hopefully somebody contracts it. We
No,
don't.
that makes sense.
So even with the COVID that's been going on, you know, HUD is kind of, you know, they're not really being sticklers in regards to the 14 days and 21 days, but we still try to get everything done because but the toughest part is the residents and everything else, because everyone's just so wary of coming out and renting a new unit and everything else. But I gotta say, you know, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units that are under leased. So just you know, they will be off. It's just waiting for the paperwork to come back in, signed, sealed, and delivered, and those units will be off. And right now, you know, my maintenance guys are in these 3 units, getting them ready to be re-rented.
All those in green, you have lease up agreements pending?
Yep, they're all pending, and so we're just waiting for the leases to come back, and they will be off. So they're leased up. So it's just waiting for the
Perfect.
paper.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we're going to move on to item 5C, general information. The first item is the Circle of Friends quarterly newsletter.
Yeah, kudos to Marianne. This is a thing that Marianne has to do on a quarterly basis. It's one of the agreements that we have through the state and through the town, because we do get funding through the town of Manchester for some of her salary. And it's also part of the agreement through the state because of Manchester Housing Authority having a resident service coordinator on. So kudos to the information that she's done. I'm sure next month will be a little bit more lengthier because of COVID and everything else. So just, you know, I gotta thank, you know, really thank the residents that we have. They have been complying. I know it's a real pain, but you know, same thing. I'm gonna be going around and asking them, you know, if they think they need some counseling per se, because I know individuals have just been locked up per se. I've been hearing from my other colleagues that, you know, they've been reaching out to a counseling agency just in case if they do need some type of counseling because of the situation. I'm going to do the same thing with staff. reach out to staff. I don't think I think all the staff has been great. But just in case, just let them know if they need to have some type of counseling. I want to, give them the opportunity if they need to speak to somebody because of this COVID-19. But it's mind-boggling so much. But I gotta say, with what staff has done, both public housing, maintenance, and Section 8. The Section 8 ladies on both the John D'Amelia program and our program have done a tremendous job speaking with the residents, giving them guidance through these tough times. So kudos to them and everything else. That it's really a tough situation, and it's really tough to work from home and everything else. But they're doing a great job. I got to give them kudos. So eventually, hopefully one of these days when things lighten up, I can throw a nice little party for them, a nice little luncheon for thanks, especially after last month's presentation that the board got from Jason on, job well done with the audits and everything else. But we have a great team. I have to say that I have a great team, and I'm very thankful for having them.
Good job. We're going to move on following in that vein. Item 2 is the update on COVID-19 expenditures.
So from last month's meeting, I believe it was Commissioner Becker had asked that, if I can give the board a monthly update in regards to COVID expenses. So as Boomer had talked about earlier in information that I talked about, these are basically the expenses that we've incurred thus far. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger. Like I said, I just issued a request for proposal for our software. I'm looking into possible kiosks for the housing authorities. I just entered into an agreement with Connecticut Communication for our phone line improvement, which was about, Boomer can correct me, it was a little bit over $8,000, between $8,000 and $9,000, I believe, for an upgrade to our communication phone lines. There's going to be more expenses that are coming out. We had to purchase some furniture for some of the staff. I've bought some furniture for our community room with dividers. So in case if the employees need to meet with residents or participants, I have the plexiglass between with some type of privacy that we have. And I got to say, Lyco office furniture here in the town of Manchester, they came in and did a nice floor plan and made sure that they went through all the offices and they said, we're in compliance. You meet all the expectations of the 6 feet distancing. There's other stuff. Like I said, right now on here, you don't see it, but we just did, it was about $5,000. I want to say it was roughly about $5,000 that Manchester lock. We just did a camera system, buzzer system for the front door. So Nancy our receptions would not have to get up and then everything else because the front door is going to be locked at all times. And there's going to be other things that are coming. Like Boomer had stated, between AMP 1 and 2 was roughly $147,000. The Section 8 program was about $80,000 of COVID money. So, you're talking about a little bit over $220,000 that the housing authority has that we can do towards improvements on here. So my first goal is is the IT, to take care of all the IT situations and then see what else we need to do in regards to this. And one thing that the government has mentioned is, this is monies that we need to utilize by December 31st. monies that we don't utilize by December 31st, then they would take it back. If there's things that you think of, that we may need, please let me know. I think, one of the things is, purchasing iPads. If I need to purchase iPads, for an example, for the commissioners, that's what I will do. Whatever it may be, these are expenses. But like I said, and like how Boomer says, we just need to make sure they're all related to COVID, because the Office of Inspector General from HUD will be coming out to audit these expenses. Same thing because of possible second wave. Even though we may have enough face masks and everything else, I'm going to be looking to purchase more face masks and everything else, just to be on the safe side in case of there's a second swarm. Same thing, if a resident comes in, it's going to be mandatory that they have face masks. You're not going to come in without a face mask. So maybe I keep a stack of face masks for in case of there are tenants that come and they don't have a face mask. One will be provided to that individual so they can come into the building. But we've bought hand sanitizer that goes up on the walls. So these, what you see here, are just basically the things that I purchased quickly. But next month, I'm sure you're going to see a longer list of more than the $9,000 that we paid out there. But as you can see right now, there was $9,300 in regards to expenses that we bought in regards to supplies, face masks. But then you'll see that there's also roughly about $25,000 that was towards wages. So from April 2nd until June 2nd, so you had a 2-month window there. The Housing Authority has expenses about $34,000.
Yeah, I think it makes some sense long-term to look at some of these things and change some of the way we do business in terms of particularly client interactions, because maybe there's some lessons to be learned from COVID that can be applied. But I think particularly some of the interview space we do with client interactions, and also the use of technology, maybe even thinking on a bigger scale long-term to digitize some of our records, because I know, talking to staff, there are some difficulties, working from home with paper files and so forth, that you still have to maintain the integrity of everything and security, that we may want to look to see if there's some digital solutions long-term, looking beyond this, because I think it opens your eyes to how you do business, and we utilize some of these funds that will benefit the agency long-term.
Right, and just to add to that, Mr. Chairman, that's why the RFP is out right now. I'm looking to go digital, all the digital signatures on all the forms and everything else. So I may also have in-house, if residents do come in, have the digital signature pads and everything else. And that's why with the RFP and working with our IT, Net Synergy, and just, myself talking with my colleagues with the FADA and NARO and Connecticut NARO, NERC NARO, all the relationships I made throughout the country. I'm getting bits and pieces of what each housing authority is doing, and just taking notes, because some of the things that they're doing may not work for us. So, and the things I get back, I bring it to the table to Steve and Cheryl and Boomer, and we will discuss this and say, okay, is this an option for us, and everything else. So you're absolutely correct. That's why right now with this extra $225,000, this is one way to benefit us, and everything else. Same thing is that I may also be doing a couple Zoom platforms in the offices. Because for Section 8, like for Karen, that's, taking our notes, and Jackie from our office, if and when when they call people off the Section 8 wait list and we're issuing vouchers, I don't think there's any more going to be having a group of 10 or 15 people in our community room. Now we could basically do it on a Zoom link per se. So give them the opportunity to utilize our little conference room that we have to do a Zoom calls and do the presentation via video now. So, things that you're doing, that's why we looked at upgrading our phone system. That's a +2 for, expenses that, the phone system is over 10 years old. There has been some issues, and that's what we're looking to do. Also looking to improve our internet services and Wi-Fi because of the building setup. So this is the time to do it. This is the money, but I want to use the money wisely and everything else.
You have the floor for a minute, just a comment and
Yes.
some questions.
Mr. Mather?
Yeah, no, I support you definitely investing in technology. I mean, that's going to go right to your efficiency, and anything that can, also provide security. I like the idea of having the camera at the door, and the ability to buzz someone in, as opposed to, I know it's a public building, but doesn't mean that the door has to be open, especially when we reopen, doesn't mean you can't keep that system to provide a little security for the building. So only people that you want to enter. I mean, it's not even in a public building. It's not like you try to go to any school. It's not unusual. You're going to be buzzed in with a,
Correct.
a camera. Just had a question on this expense report.
Sure.
The wireless, Verizon wireless cell overages, do we have the best corporate plan to,
Yes.
No.
So yes, I questioned that when I first saw that bill. So
Yeah.
what happened there was, because before they looked at our plans, and a lot of the cell phones did not have unlimited minutes, because when they looked at everyone's bill when we did it. So now, because people working from home, we went over the overages. Same thing with the iPad I had. I never in the past went over. Now, like today, for an example, I'm on my Surface for one call. So today at 2:00, I was on 2 different calls. So I had one video on my Surface, and I had another video on my iPad. So what was happening is I was probably the number one delinquent, not realizing until that bill came in that the iPad went over the minutes. So we
did you
had,
sign up for a better plan?
yes, I talked to Verizon, in which right now,
They want you on the best plan to keep you from switching to AT&T.
correct. So the lady that I spoke to, who was our contact person, she has put a request in to see if we can get that money back.
Good, good.
$700.
They're very good about that.
Yeah, and what happened is, now because of everything going on, she had uploaded everything for unlimited minutes. So iPads, our phone, all unlimited minutes. But now our telephone bill for Verizon will go up an extra $100, which is
Yeah, but that's still a great deal.
right. So no, I took care of that, Commissioner.
All right, I look at numbers.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
one other question. One other question.
Sure.
The list of wages, is that overtime expenses related to the COVID, where you have people on weekends doing disinfecting, things like that?
No. So what that is basically, because we're taking a look at the books, because I didn't want all the maintenance guys being there together. So these are
Right.
things that they so-called work from home. So they're at home because, maintenance, when they're home, they're just at home. I can't, they're on call per se. So now I have all the guys back, but I still give each guy 1 day off per week. So It's a COVID thing, so it's from them working from home. So it's just the COVID expenses.
Okay, so these are wages that we normally would pay to the employees, but these specifically go to COVID-related activities
Correct.
or whatever.
Mhm.
Is it
So,
all
right.
maintenance? Is it all maintenance or is it other staff?
These were maintenance because they were out because they can't work from home. Like
Right,
our staff are able to work from home.
right,
So on here is basically all the maintenance guys along with our receptionist, Nancy, because Nancy at times, what the days that she did not want to work the 8 hours because, because of her, she's one of the vulnerable populations. She would
right.
come in for a couple hours per day and then go home. So that's why when you see 333, those means that she was in the office for 4 hours. Because when she goes home, she doesn't have a laptop. She can't answer the phone. So these are just expenses that we would charge, that we're charging the government to get reimbursement back for our expenses.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to item 3, the return to work policy.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give the board a little bit. I've been working with Mike Rona in regards to our policies and seeing, when I open the place back. One of the recommendations that Attorney Rona had mentioned, I think maybe Attorney Rubin will agree, is once we get back into place, that we should have employees sign off the policy. One of the biggest thing in the policy that I wanted, that I was, as we know, is I can't deny anyone vacation, and I would not deny anyone vacation, but it is the responsibility of the employees to at least let me know if they do go out of state. And as you see now, we have roughly about 20 states that is in the high vulnerability that we have issues. And as you saw that the governor today, along with the two other governors from New York and New Jersey, they have put a mandatory 14 days if you come from Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, all these different states. So I do know that I have individuals that do travel down there. And so, if they do go, I would hope that they will tell me. And then when they come back, they need to, especially if they're in a hot spot, one of the things I would probably do is mandatory have them stay home quarantine themselves for 14 days. That's one way. That's one thing you could do. Two, the second thing you could do is get two negative COVID testings, or you could also, take a temperature reading every single day. So everything that you do on these things, you need to keep confidential and not in the the employees' files. So I just wanted to share to you what myself and Attorney Rona had put together, just for you to take a look at and see what your thoughts were. If there's anything that you'd like to add or delete. But what we looked at was basically trying to get everything that, that's coming out of COVID. I would say that I believe the employees at MHA would not jeopardize one of their coworkers. But listening to other individuals, they're looking to have their employees sign off a work policy per se. So I just, we put that together. I just wanted you to take a look at it, see what your thoughts, because this would be an addendum to our personnel policy that we have in place right now.
Joe, let me just say, this is Paul Rubin. Let me just say that I was impressed that you guys put together something so thorough, because one of the things that people are struggling with right now, businesses, even sports organizations, everybody, is the liability under COVID. In other words, you allow someone to come back knowing that they may be in a hot spot or knowing that they may have had some symptoms. Are you, and that person gets somebody else sick. To what extent are you liable? And then more importantly, to what extent is your insurance liability carrier going to actually cover the loss? Because there's a lot of concern that insurance liability carriers are going to say, no, this wasn't contemplated in our policy. We're not covering you, against any lawsuits. So there's all of that. So I just want to say that I'm very impressed that you guys put something together so thorough. I reviewed it and I thought it hit all the major points.
Do you think, Commissioner Rubin, do you think that I can implement this right now, or should I wait and, wait till the full board? I just want, I don't want my employees or, our employees think, I'm doing something terrible, but I have to look out for myself and of course the organization and, like you said, our organization and all that stuff. And I want to avoid lawsuits.
Well, yes, Joe, but you're also looking out for if you want to look at it, the way I see it is not only are you looking to protect yourself, but you're also protecting other employees.
Right.
There's no way that an employee is going to know when they come back from somewhere if they have it or not, unless they're tested. But but more concerningly, if I'm working in the office and I have a pre-existing medical condition, but I really need to work and I really want to be working, or I'm just scared of it. I'm just very concerned about getting it. I may not be able to ask that person, well, where were you? Who did you see? What did you do? But I want something to make me feel a little bit better that my boss has my back.
Absolutely. And that's why I did this, Commissioner Rubin, because I see when I'm in the office, as I mentioned it in the past, my wife's in the front line. I hate working from home. I go on there on the weekends or first thing in the morning or late at night. But unfortunately, there are days that I have to be there during the course of the day. Like, for example, tomorrow, I need to be there at Spencer Village, but I'm with my masks and everything else. And I want exactly, you nailed it on the coffin. I want the employees to know that I'm there for them and looking out for them. That's why I purchased all these things and trying to get everything possible. We have Miss Karen on the line here taking notes. Kudos to her. She's made face masks, cloth face masks for our employees. I purchased the elastics for her. So the team is all there and doing things. So I agree, and I'm grateful and thank you for your comments that the work that Mike Rowland and I put into this. We just wanted to make sure that I wanted the staff to know that I do care about the safety.
I have no objection to you implementing this policy. I think obviously in this whole environment, I don't know that we need to prolong the implementation of this. It's an emergency type situation. It's why the governor does executive orders, and this is an administrative policy. And while, yes, the board does sign off on employee policies, I understand the rationale behind this. I agree with it. And like Paul said, it is designed to protect the employees. Some may not always view it that way, but these are uncertain times. And, just today, the governor, along with the governor of New York and New Jersey, implemented wasn't a travel ban per se, but it did have quarantine restrictions. And that's essentially what you're talking about, is that we need to protect anyone who may travel, particularly to one of those hot spots. We were the hot spot 2 months ago. Today, we're not. We may be again. But, I think we need to have some flexibility to allow you to do this. And I appreciate you informing the board. But if you were to implement it, I'd have no objection.
No, that's, as you know, with my 6 years of being your executive director, I always want the board to know exactly what I'm doing and everything else. So that's why, and thank you for those kind words. That's why I always let the board know what's going on, because there's no hidden agenda. As you know, I just want to do everything correctly. And, you're right. I did not need to let the board know, but that's not the way I operate. I want the board to know exactly what's going on. So in case if you do get a call from an employee, you know exactly what I'm doing and everything else.
I appreciate that.
Josh, Tim Becker,
Yeah.
can I ask a question on this?
Absolutely.
Okay. I guess just one, I'm a nitpicker, I know, but could we have someone before this is finalized, just proofread it? I just noticed there's a typo right on page 1. I know we're Italian, some of the executive director is of Italian descent, but the last paragraph, first sentence, just has a typo in it. But, beyond that, page 4, I guess my other question I know you're working with our attorneys on this.
Yes.
It says point blank, employee may be asked the status of their health. Does federal HIPAA, is that a concern? I mean, I understand the reason because of COVID, but are we getting into any gray areas with asking people about their health,
No, what Attorney Rona had indicated is I do have the right, question. It's just like somebody comes into the office per se. If somebody has a headache or something, are you feeling okay?
Yeah.
I'm not asking any medical condition. My thing is, are you feeling okay? And if they say no, I can just say, you know what? Why don't you go home and work from home today?
Okay.
And everything else. So I'm not getting down to the HIPAA and knowing, do you have some type of cancer or whatever may be. I'm just asking the question is saying, are you feel? Because one of the things that they say, if you're not feeling good, you should call your manager and say, I'm not feeling good today. So at least we could say, stay home and everything else. So, the question I would be doing is I'm not going to ask them anything that would violate the HIPAA laws. Just say, are you feeling okay? If you're not feeling good.
I guess my question is this, as Attorney Rolla, does he have any concerns about that being an issue? Because it doesn't say we can ask employee if they're feeling okay. It says we can ask them about their health. I'm just asking. I don't know what Paul may think about that, but
Yeah, no, I read through it, Tim, and I think in this day and age, with what we're dealing with, I think, how are you feeling? Are you doing okay? What is your health like today? I think it's a very appropriate question to ask because once again, it's not invasive. It's not violating HIPAA in any way. And HIPAA is really not a law. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into the HIPAA laws, but I'm not concerned about it. But I mean, if Attorney Rona can be asked that question, I don't have a problem with that.
okay, that was my only concern. Otherwise, I think you're being really proactive here and establish this, and employees know you have their back because you have a plan. I definitely will support this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Moving on to item 4, the memo with the update for the revitalization of the West Hill Congregate.
Well, just a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Becker.
Is a vote in order to adopt this as a policy of the Housing Authority?
A vote would be in order to authorize the executive director to implement that. I'd entertain that.
As a policy-making board.
Yeah, I know. What I was implying before is I think we would delegate some authority, given the fact he has shared this with us. I mean, to fine tune it or maybe to produce the final document before he distributes it. Something along those lines is what I was thinking.
Okay.
I mean, I'll defer to you. I mean,
No, I'm just asking that it's a policy. We definitely seem to, all three of us are supporting it.
Yeah.
I guess, what would you be looking for a proper
actually,
motion?
I'll ask Joe if he thinks it would be helpful to him to have the endorsement of the board as well. That might be beneficial with the employee.
I think it would be beneficial if I have the endorsement of the board, because at least if any question comes from an employee, at least the board is well aware of what's going on. That, you know, I'm here to protect the staff. I want them to know, like you said, all three of you understand. I'm here to protect our employees and everything else. And if I don't have their signature on there, I really don't have any strength per se, you know, especially God forbid if somebody did not tell me that they went down to Florida or they went to Arizona and all that stuff. You know, I'm just looking out for the health of all my employees. And, you know, same thing. If you're not feeling good, stay home. Do not risk. There's no reason that even if there's something that you need to get done that day, it can wait for the following day. Just stay home, not to get anybody in our office. God forbid this COVID-19 or any type of
Okay. What I'll suggest then is when we get to new business, we'll add a new business item 5 for the return
Okay.
to work policy.
Now, is this considered an addendum to our employment policy?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we could incorporate that in the motion.
Right. So I'll entertain a motion to add it to the agenda when we get into new business. Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. So back to item 5C4, update to revitalization of West Hill Congregate.
Okay. It gets more and more after I rate this thing to you, but as you can see, these are the last ticket items that I need to be done. So today, I was on the phone with our architect, Tom Arcari. I was on the phone with CHFA and trying to get this project up and going because of the situation with Northeast Builders with these last ticket items. And I'm hopefully waiting to get a start and completion date from them. Today, Northeast Builders threw a curveball to me in which they were looking for additional $30,000 for them to start the process. To make a long story short, when I was speaking with Tom Arcari, I see a couple problems here. I said, on this $30,000 that they're looking for, there is no mention. There was 2 asterisks that they had in which I had concerns. I said, one is in their general conditions, they did not put a price in regards to how many meetings that we may be having from now to the end of the closing. And 2, they had the mention about how the asphalt for the driveway had went up roughly almost $7 per yard, I think it was. So I said to our, Tom Arcari and to our team at CHFA, I believe that this 30,000 is incorrect and that they're probably going to be looking for much more money and everything else. And they're like, Joe, good catch. I'm like, well, I've been learning on these things. So we do have a conference call on Friday to try to get this thing justified. Once I can get this thing justified, then I'm hoping Northeast Builders will come here and finish these last 6 items. And basically on the projected time frame that I saw that they gave, they should have everything done within 53 days. So I'll say within 2 months. I was hoping for them to begin in July, but It probably won't be, it could be sometime in July, but we're looking at a 2-month time frame of them. So I will be back hard to work with. Almost into two other situations. And I know I brought it up to the board last time. One was to terminate them because of them not complying with the contract, but then they could come back after us because they didn't get their full amount of money. Two, we could have pulled their bond, in which that could be a nightmare, in which it would cost the housing authorities anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 in legal fees if we pulled their bond. Or three is for me to try to work with CHFA and possibly do a budget revision if I didn't have enough money, if things didn't comply. Hopefully that CHFA could come up with some money. So we're going with number three in regards to the budget revision. With the talks that I had and looking at some of the line items that we still have, looks like I'll be able to move some money around because, for an example, like legal fees, there's roughly about $12,000 left in legal fees, in which at the closing, basically Attorney Rona just comes in there and signs his name, I guess. So it shouldn't be more than $1,000 per se. So I'm able to move some money around per se, but I'm just looking to just get this project done. And so forth.
I concur at this point because we don't, I mean, the other options could involve litigation.
Yes.
Tim and I both can recall a similar project from the town of Manchester that nobody won in that situation. It just delayed a project. Unfortunately, this thing seems to be going on forever. And the only thing I would say, I concur, work with them, work with CHFA. But if we have to pull the plug and either call the bond or terminate their contract completely, we should have an executive session because I don't want to go into the details in a public meeting because it would be, then it becomes potential litigation.
Before I do option 1 or 2, as you know, Mr. Chair and the rest of the board, I will contact you. Absolutely, there will be, but I feel confident. I'm just looking to get this project done. It's been a beautiful project, but a nightmare right now. So I am working diligently on this and trying to rectify this situation.
I agree, and I've driven through there even recently, and it, you know, unfortunately, the project looks good on the inside. It'll be nice when you can put the bow on it and the landscaping and the parking area and everything are done.
Right.
You know, I can't, and particularly the canopy to have it finished so it doesn't look like it's still a construction site.
Correct.
But hopefully we can get it done. And I know with obviously the COVID-19, you know, gave the contractor an excuse to further delay the project as well.
Yes, it did.
Mr. Chairman, Tim Becker, can I just ask a couple of questions?
Yes.
What's the approximate lump sum that's still outstanding that we owe on the contract? And is the contractor asking for a little bit more? Is that where we're at?
With the money for retainage money and the rest of the job, they're due about $250,000. But now because of this added expense with the asphalt going up about $7 per yard, in this general conditions that, you know, of this additional $30,000, this was money a little bit more than what they were looking for. And this is where they're holding me, I hate to use the word hostage, but you know, they got a gun over my head right now, and I'm just trying to rectify the situation. And that's why with talking with the individuals from CHFA, I believe after a long conversation again today, it's almost been a daily conversation in these past couple of weeks. I don't know how many Advils I went through because of my headaches going on with this project. But I think after Friday's conversation, and hopefully that the contractor, Northeast Builders, gives me the final numbers, so at least I can work on that and do what I need to do, and get it signed, sealed, and delivered. Because I'm holding it to their head that once this final change order goes through, that's it. And there will be no more change orders. And, if anything goes above that, it's on their dime. So this is the final straw that I'm holding them against. So I'll keep you informed, but I'm hoping that by next week, we'll have all these numbers and get this process going and to the finish line. And I can say, signed, sealed, and delivered. Thank you very much. Thank you for the job that you did. And Congress will be done. And then the revitalization of Spencer Village begins with a different GC.
No, I support your strategy on just getting compliance with the original contractor. And if we have to pay him a little more, I guess CHFA is willing to work with you to get this done.
Yes, they are.
Good.
I have a good team over there.
All right. So it's up to you to sweet talk him into getting the job done.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 5, the update to the revitalization of Spencer Village.
Yes, we're getting to the finish line right now, because we right now we have the paperwork to HUD to release the funds for the 25 project-based vouchers that we're incorporating there, in which they have until July 8th to sign off, because that would be the 15 days. Once I get that, that's a feather in our cap. We are hoping to get everything signed, sealed, and delivered between the tax creditors and CHFA, which I'll probably be signing my life away. We're hoping it will happen by July 15th, the middle of July. I am meeting with the residents once again tomorrow, in which I had a meeting with them 2 weeks ago, just to let them know what's going on. But unfortunately, the new management team could not show up. So I went out there because of a letter that went out. It was almost the same letter that went out when we were doing RAD. I had to have the meeting with the residents. So same thing 2 weeks ago, these individuals wanted my head on their platter because they thought they were going to be displaced and everything else. And this is, when you send out these threatening letters, that's how you get people, the residents, to show up. And when I explained to them, nobody's being displaced, nobody's leaving, and the whole 9 yards, they were very thankful of what was going on. So tomorrow I do have the general contractor from Pioneer Builders coming out, along with Maria DeMarco from DeMarco Management, so residents can meet them. We'll have Mary Ann Murray down there because we are going to be talking about the relocations. We were hoping to have a couple of these units that I have the eviction cases. I was hoping to get those units, but now because of the housing court not being open, I need to work out a deal with the Hawthorne Hotel right next door, so we can have these individuals stay at the hotel. Same thing. If I had the crystal ball and everything goes well, Marco from Pioneer Builders believes that September 1 will be the date that they can start the renovation process down at Spencer Village, in which I will not be there every single day, since now as we hired a individual from the John D'Amelia's office. So our new mod coordinator, Niall Scala, will be out there on a daily basis, verifying the work that's being done on each and every day. So he will be the clerk of works on behalf of the Manchester Housing Authority. So all good news. After all the struggling, I think the board knows, the headaches that I was having during all this time because of what was happening. This project should have been done right now, but I'm glad to say, thank God, amen. Ready to go. And it'll be another lovely project, that the
Yeah, we do have a series of resolutions we
Yeah.
need to adopt after this related to that project, but I'll just add, the residents at Spencer Village of all, I think Joe loves all his residents and all equally, but there's a special place. Spencer Village seems to be the most appreciative of what they have and are very patient generally. And, I know over the years going out there and meeting with them, there's a core group there that always comes out. And they really appreciate having a roof over their heads and what the housing authority does for them. And it actually makes you feel good. Sometimes they vent and you let them do that. But then at the end of every meeting, there's almost this appreciation that shows through. And it's somewhat gratifying from a commissioner standpoint that you're doing something for these individuals. So.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Tim Becker, just
Mr.
a
Becker.
general question on this. I know we're utilizing tax credits as part of the funding for this project, correct?
Yes.
Does that change the ownership of this project in any way? Do they take any sort of ownership away from the state of Connecticut, or just, I can't grasp exactly what their piece of this is.
So because of the tax credits, the ownership, we just transfer the ownership to them, in which we sent, and that's why one of the resolutions that you see, we still have the land lease for 98 years in which we still own the land. We just transfer all the powers to DeMarco Management, which DeMarco Management will be managing the property. They will be held responsible for the day-to-day operations there. They will, because of tax credits, there's special forms that needs to be signed for the tax creditors, in which I guess that it's very, the tax creditors want to make sure that they get their tax credits on their yearly tax reforms. And Mr. Rubin can probably help me out a little bit there. So there's so many different scenarios that comes into play. So because myself or anyone at our housing authority, nobody's a tax credit understands it or does it all. So that's why when we did this deal, we put in that when we filed everything in there with the tax creditors, once we got it, I went out with the RFP and DeMarco Property Management responded and was awarded the contract. So what would happen is still the state would send us the money, and then we would send the money, the operation monies that we get, and send that to DeMarco. But now DeMarco will be responsible. Will be responsible to pay all the bills, hire their own maintenance staff, make whatever repairs. They will get paid a fee. They will be responsible for the collections of rents. If lease violations, now it's going to be them to hire their own attorneys and go for the evictions. They will be maintaining the wait list and everything else.
Will we have any oversight or involvement once we turn this over to that management company? And will we receive any income from this
No, we won't.
housing project?
We won't, because it's as far as I recall, I don't believe that they're the ones that are going to be holding on. I know, if I'm not mistaken, and I can double check, DeMarco, I'm hoping that within the next 5 years that if we want to take over, I just need to make sure that I have an employee that's is tax credit certified. Because the tax creditors are very, what I've learned is that they are very picky and they review on who's doing the books and who's doing the tax credits, because they don't want to lose any credits off their taxes each year. So as of right now, I believe the agreement that I'm going to have with DeMarco is that they're going to manage it for the first 5 years. So unless if I can get somebody that's certified, right now Martha Bertrand is the individual that that's oversees it. I just need to see if that's something that she is interested in learning and going through the classes. If not, then I got to decide something down the road is to hire somebody that has tax credit, that's tax credit certified. I took a fresher class about 2 months ago that Conero had put together, and my head's still spinning from that 2-day training. But I would have to see, I would have to look down the road at what plans that we're going to do.
First 5 years initially, DeMarco's going to just manage the whole thing. We're going to provide some Section 8 vouchers, and that will be our involvement in the project.
Correct.
But the people, the residents there are going to get renovated units, hopefully much better than what's there now.
Yeah. So even though the renovations are going, no, DeMarco will be there. We'll still be playing a part. But any resident complaints or anything that happens, they will basically be going through DeMarco management.
Also, we would get the administrative fees associated with the 25 project-based vouchers.
Okay, we will get that income.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's a good deal for everybody concerned.
Yes.
Well, you also need to keep in mind that the current state of Spencer Village was unsustainable. And that's the key thing. I
Right.
mean, CHFA, the Department of Housing, essentially, they pushed us down the project-based voucher road. And in order to provide, in our mission, safe, affordable public housing, this was probably the best course of action for us to pursue. In the residents, for the welfare of the residents, we couldn't continue with the status quo, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, well, the state was basically unwilling to provide capital funds, and it seems like their rental assistance program is also being phased out. So it seems like they're trying to get out of the housing business completely.
Absolutely, because of
Correct.
the deficit that the state is under. So, and that's why I mentioned, way in the beginning, like what Josh has mentioned, it's more that if we did not put a tax credit, and this is something from the old administration, in which I'm not here to knock anybody, but we knew, John D'Amelia and myself fought over and over when we put this thing together. They kind of forced it, that says, no, the only way that the state will approve this is that you need to do a tax credit deal, in which still to this day, I don't believe we needed a tax credit in there, but the tax credit deal was so the state didn't have to give us as much money, and this is where you borrow the money from. And that's,
Right. Well,
we needed to do something for the residents, and that's like what Josh has mentioned. They are very unique, and I treat everybody like Commissioner Howard had mentioned. I treat everybody with respect, dignity, and everything else. But one day they'll just, like last 2 weeks ago, they'll come in there and just, oh my God, they wanted my head on a platter. But at the end of the day, Joe, we love you. Thank you very much. And, you know, and everything else. So they're very unique. Each different, as you know, I don't call them developments. Each community is so different of the individuals that live there. It's just mind-boggling. And you know, same thing. You know, we have the community garden, and the community garden is just so beautiful that this is what keeps the people active. Without that community garden before, the residents were not doing any exercises and everything. So this motivates them and everything else.
Okay. We're all set with that update. So we're going to pass on the chairman's report. Well, actually, for the chairman's report, I was just going to mention that NARO is having a virtual conference next month, right? In lieu of the New York conference, it's going to be a 2-day online thing with workshops like they normally would have. So if anyone's interested in signing up for that, let Joe know. But it'll be from the comfort of your own home. It'll be a virtual, correct, Joe?
Yes, it will. It's basically almost gonna be the same thing for Con-Nero. It'll be a virtual reality conference.
Yeah, I just need to check the dates. It was toward the end of July.
I'll send it out to everybody at the end of our board meeting. I'll send out the information to all the commissioners, and if it's something that you want me to sign you up, I'll be more than glad to sign you up for it.
Yeah, I just want to look at what the workshops are, whether it's, worth the expense to.
Right.
So I don't know that I need to do
I'll send it out to the
6
board.
more rad seminars.
Yep.
Okay, that's it for the chairman's report. There's no old business, so brings us to item 8, new business, resolution 2020-7, resolution and consent to enter an agreement and promissory note with CHFA.
Yes, as I got in front of you, this is one of 4 resolutions that I need to finalize the closing between CHFA and our tax creditors. So this is for CHFA, the security, to enter the note, mortgage, and security agreement with the CHFA for obtaining the financial assistance from CHFA in the amount to not to exceed $3,500,000 for the renovations at Spencer Village.
I'll move adoption of resolution 2020-7.
Second,
Moved by Mr. Rubin, seconded by Mr. Becker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. It's 3-0. Okay, item 2, resolution 2020-8, resolution and consent to enter an agreement and promissory note with the Department of Housing.
Yes, so with this, it's the same thing, the mortgage, a security agreement through the Department of Housing. That's why we got the 3 players. We have CHFA, DOH, and then the nonprofits. So here we are looking for an amount of not to exceed $1,452,567 for the renovations at Spencer Village. In which the loan will have a term of 32 years.
Is there a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 2020-8.
And I'll second that. Joe, I got a quick question for you. Why the 32-year term? Is that mirroring something else?
That's mirroring the tax creditors. That's what they wanted.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion was by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Rubin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. It's 3-0. Item 3, resolution 2020-9, resolution and consent to enter an agreement and promissory note with Spencer Village LLC.
As you may recall, because of the changing of the names, we've incorporated Spencer Village LLC. So this is for the purpose of loaning the money of up to $1,484,404 to for the revitalization of the project. And same thing, it's for having a loan up to 32 years, which also includes an interest rate consistent with the federal interest rate of that time. This is through our nonprofit going as under Manchester Housing Authority. Now we're incorporated as Spencer Village LLC.
Is there a motion?
Tim Becker moved to adopt.
And I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Rubin. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is 3-0. Okay, item 4, resolution 2020-10, resolution and consent to enter an agreement and promissory note with Eversource.
So, yes, so 2020-10, when we put the application in, Eversource was a partner of ours. And when we put the application in, basically, we are looking to do all the utility upgrades, but they believe that we may have to come up with a amount. And the amount that we agreed upon was not to exceed $56,345 if there was any unnecessary upgrades that we did not have in the original plans that they do need. So if we do need to make some type of maintenance or an upgrade in the utilities, we would look to take a loan from the utility company not to exceed $56,345. Same thing, the loan will be for 32 years.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt that resolution.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second. Tim
Moved by
Becker.
Mr. Rubin, seconded by Mr. Becker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. It is 3-0. Now I'm going to entertain a motion to add an action item for the return to work policy to the agenda. A motion to add that to the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules in order to add item 8.5, I guess it was 8.5 under new business. And it would be adoption of return to work policy addendum to the employment policy.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct, yeah. Is there a second?
Yep, I will second.
Motion to suspend the rules to add this to the agenda is made by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Rubin. All in favor of suspending the rules to add this to the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. It is 3-0 to add it to the agenda.
Josh,
Yes,
Josh,
Karen.
it's Ian. I'm not sure about the wording. So Mr. Becker wanted to suspend the rules and add to the agenda 8.5 under new business, adoption of return to work policy, which is an addendum to the employee policy.
Yes,
Is that
addendum to the MHA personnel policy.
okay?
Yep, that's, okay, so we've suspended.
Thank you.
Yep, and by the way, Karen, now that I've watched the whole meeting, it may be easy when you do it to review the Zoom thing because it has our names, the captions for each of us on the video conference. So,
Okay, I know who everybody is. I'm just saying if anybody is strictly listening and Tim speaks or you speak or Josh or
Yes.
Paul speaks, they're not going to know unless they see the video.
yeah,
So that was my only comment on that.
But, well,
correct, yeah. I think most people will be looking at the the video version on Zoom, because that's what's, I believe, going to pop up, correct?
Yes.
So I think we're good. We've been a little better, not great in doing names.
And,
Okay,
and
so now we
currently,
have,
just to clarify, currently, I believe Karen is the only one that is dialed in to listen to the meeting,
correct,
since everybody shows up on the screen. But
correct.
in any case,
Yeah,
the video is going to be preserved if there are any questions
Yeah.
when you do the minutes.
we're still learning this Zoom thing, but
Yes.
getting a little better. So, okay, so but we now have before us the addendum to the MHA personnel policy regarding the return to work policy. Is there discussion?
Mr.
Hearing
Chairman,
none, is there a motion to approve the policy?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the also giving the executive director to fine tune the final version as needed in case there's any wording fine or whatever, any spellings or corrections that have to be made before this draft that we viewed is adopted. I don't think we have to review it again.
No,
I just want to make the motion that executive director, with the idea the executive director will make any fine tunings to it.
okay, appreciate that clarification. Is
Is
there a
that-
second to Mr. Becker's motion?
I will second. This is Paul Rubin.
Yep, so motion by Mr. Becker, second by Mr. Rubin. Discussion? See, we already discussed it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is 3-0.
So this
No
is resolution 2020-11?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No executive session, Joe?
No.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, items for future agenda. I skipped it.
Now, just a question on the previous item.
Okay,
Is this considered a resolution or just an adoption of a policy?
Yes. It's no resolution. It's just an adoption of our policy.
Okay, just to
Oh,
clarify.
so I thought we did it in the form of a resolution to adopt. I don't know. I mean,
No, the comments that is that you're supporting what I forgot the terminology that Commissioner Rubin had.
Well, adopting the policy, right?
So, because this is incorporated to the regular personnel policy, the 2018 MHA policy that's in effect right now. This is just adding an
addendum.
to it.
Right. It's not a resolution per se, just to clarify for the minutes.
Thank you.
I'm good. Okay, items for future agenda. Joe's listed the MERS plan.
I listed the MERS plan because last month we had the discussion, and I know Commissioner Becker, wants just to keep an eye on the MERS plan and what we may want to do. As mentioned with Attorney Rona, I am talking with our lobbyists on the side to see what we could possibly do in regards to this MERS plan, because it'd be much better if our lobbyists intervenes, and hopefully we can get something on the agenda on the legislation session probably next year. And so instead of having MHA be the burden of paying high-priced attorneys and trying to do this, that we have all the housing authorities involved on this to see if we can get out of these MERS plans. Or look at other alternatives that we may be able to do.
Okay, so we'll have that on a future agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. Is it possible, without basically spending a lot on legal fees to at least investigate whether we could do our own private pension plan that would basically make the current employees who contributed to it whole, but get us out of MERS and get us into a privately managed pension fund just for MHA, and then explore, alternate benefits for new hires. Is that possible to get at least a feasibility study?
I see Mr. Coonahan would like to weigh in. I'm
Good.
also going to add,
Basically, from what I gleaned from what Jason told us last month, and it's housing authorities and municipalities that are in this together. And there has been a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit that came out, and they said, well, you can go as long as you want, but it's going to cost you, $1.3 million to fund the people that were in the plan. That's the problem right now, is where it goes. And so I don't think there's a feasibility specifically that we can really do this until there's some legislation that changes it, or something that can change the world that it is.
Well,
I was just going to add that the requirement that the employees have an equivalent plan could be hotly contested in terms of what defines equivalent. Is it the contribution we make on an annual basis, or is it the payout ultimately to the individual employees upon retirement, which may be very difficult, could end up costing us more to self-fund in a quote unquote equivalent plan.
well, we won't know that without at least somebody crunching the numbers. Maybe.
Yeah, I only hesitate going it alone because this is a problem that impacts most housing authorities in Connecticut, and frankly, as our auditor mentioned, several municipalities as well.
So you think the Conero may come up with a comprehensive solution?
I think the president of Conero is nodding his head in agreement right now. So.
I'm doing everything possible, with my reign as president, and our lobbyist, Rome Smith and Lutz, and the individual that's employed by there, Joe Ryder. Him and I have been working closely on this thing. So he's very smart, and he's doing the research on this to see what we can do. As Commissioner Howard has mentioned, it's all these housing authorities, and especially as Boomer has mentioned, with what has happened to a lot of housing authorities, it's impacting each year. Our contribution is going up and up because the situation that happened that was funded incorrectly from the state. And now the employees now have to pay a higher rate each year, and just going up and up. And that's affecting a lot of the small housing authorities, even the middle-sized housing authorities per se. So we are trying to gather all this information. Mr. Ryder knows this is one of my top initiatives for the upcoming legislation. So he's working very diligently to see what we can possibly do and go forward in front of our legislators.
So, well, we'll have this on a future agenda. So we'll have this discussion in a little more detail next month. Is there anything else anyone would like to add to a future agenda at this time?
No.
Can't think of anything.
As always, if you have anything, let Joe or I know, and we will put it on. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr.
Ruben.
Rubin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And
Chair
it's,
votes aye. It is 3-0 at 8:14.
yes.
Thank you very much.
Excellent meeting.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
All right.
Joe,
See you
I'll
next-
be in, I'll be in to sign the minutes tomorrow.
Yeah, I appreciate it. If I'm not in, I'll just leave it with Steve, so I make sure that you sign it, because I'll be down Spencer, so I'll be in the office till about 9:30 before I head down there.
Yeah, I should be in around then.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Where will we find you on Saturdays when we need some alcohol, Josh?
2 to 8, 2 to 9, actually, on Saturday.
And where is that?
Browns.
Okay. All right.
I probably need that every single night.
See you
All
later.
right. Have a nice week.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.